take a walk on some nice cool sand, drink some jelly water or a killing. When it comes to my island, you're a stranger once, you must believe me. Where else in the world you get this immediately? Authentic love is given to each and everybody. Nowhere, nowhere, nowhere but my island, right here, right here, right.
Well, first of all, let me thank you guys so much for taking me around the three very important sites, starting from Fort Charles.
Yes.
I was really impressed with Fort Charles because I was there, I think, 2 or 3 years ago, and it was like sort of a little bit cramped. I thought the wall would be collapsing, and there was actually no presentation. But today, when we went, I think it's really well presented. I was actually amazed, and even with the guns, you know, the big guns. I know that in the past you had the gun platforms, which have already eroded and disappeared because they are made of wood. But I think the attempt just to try to visualize, just to try to put them in perspective, is a great effort. And just as I said, you may need to have the paint, the black paint, to paint so that it can stop corrosion. Otherwise, I think Fort Charles really looked good. You also asked me about the toilet. Of course, it's within the buffer zone, but it's part of the visitor facility, and I think it's very small. It can always be camouflaged. You just need to grow, you know, the trees around it, and it will cover it, and you show where, you know, the visitors can go and use. Even in World Heritage places, there are many forts in the world which are listed, and they have toilets inside. So it doesn't stop you from providing visitor facilities. Maybe others would have preferred to have it a kilometer away, but then is that going to serve its purpose? So I would say that, you know, it's been done. I think the only thing that you need to do is to camouflage it, and it's perfectly okay. It's outside the wall, although in the buffer zone. In terms of the Cottle Church, I think this is one of the most fantastic places. I think the society and the ministry are doing a great job with that church. Of course, there's some restoration work that was done, particularly the one with the block cements, which doesn't look very good. You can see that. But generally, I think that is a wonderful place. And lastly, my comment here, I think this is a great site. It's really fantastic. I think this is the first site that Lorna and I came when I first came to Nevis. It was the first one. And I thought it was only this building down here and nothing up there. And I was so impressed to see that this site actually goes, you know, for very long.
Yeah.
Yes.
And there's definitely, if there is nothing, if there was no much interference, this is one area which could actually potentially be tested for its outstanding universal value based on the history and the structures that are still remaining. It's a beautiful place. It's really fantastic, and you're doing a great job. As an archaeologist, I may not like you to be collecting all the stones and putting them together, but that has been done. What you need to do is basically to show that that has been done now and not was part of the original plan, as it were. And later it's also reversible, it can be reversed. Those are my comments for now, but I think that in general it's really a great effort, and the country needs to preserve what they have.
So how would you now speak to some members of the public that would prefer large areas of land such as this to be used for something that they see as more practical, like housing? How do you get them to value this for what it is?
You know, this is what you call priceless. You can't put price on this. The reason why they say it's priceless is because you can never rebuild it. If it goes forever. A house, you can build it anywhere, even in the water. You can put stilts and build a house. It's not priceless. So I would say protect with your life what you have inherited. This is priceless. You can't put a price on it. It's beyond putting a price. So you can't put monetary value on this, because it has monetary value. It also has emotional, and other values, intangible values, the history associated with it, that you cannot bring from somewhere and place here. So whatever you have here, don't even think about doing away with it and putting anything new. Please look for somewhere else and put houses. It's as simple as that. Because once you lose it, you'll never get it. And once you lose it, it goes with your history. It's what we call the idea of trying to destroy your past so that you can't even know what your future is.
Allow me to be devil's advocate for
Yes.
a little minute. So some in the community also feels strongly that maintaining this type of history, which they see as remnants of enslavement, which was a traumatic
Yes.
part of our history,
Yeah.
that we should just knock it all down and erase it because we don't need to be reminded of it on a daily basis.
So what do you have then after that? You have no history.
That
You can't claim back that past that was so painful, that makes you what you are. That journey that you have walked all through to be what you are now. That drive that has driven you to be what you are, to succeed. That blood and sweat that went into these walls. You want to erase that so that people don't know that you did it actually, that people died for it. That's what you're doing if you do that. So if you want to still be counted as contributors to the development of this world, as people who suffered so that this place can change, as people who are forced to come from a place not out of their own will and went through that kind of suffering to be able to create what is there now, then you have to maintain it. This is the least you can do, to continuously remind those who caused those atrocities that never again should this happen, that you've come a long way and you've walked a long journey, and that the journey is written in these stones that we have here. But if you take it out, you have no argument. You have no. How are you going to convince the world that in any case you suffered in the first place? And you need to do that to be able to justify that you deserve to be treated better than your great-grandparents were treated.
Right.
Do you feel these sites contribute to tourism?
Immensely, yes. Immensely. I mean, if you ask me the first thing, everybody will say, wow, beautiful island. You know, nice beaches. But beaches, I can go to any beach. I can go to Jamaica, I can go to Barbados, I can go to Antigua, I can go to all these. There are so many islands I go to the beaches. But they don't have this site in those places. So what you are selling your history. You're selling your creation. You're selling your memory. And this is where the memory is. So that you can't find this in Barbados, you can't find it in Antigua, you can't find it any other place. It is different. It can't be the same. It has got a totally different story. It's got a different context. And you can't move it from here and place it somewhere. So for me, this is what is called the added value. When you have that chain in tourism, people will come here if they are the ones who want to come for beaches. They will come for beaches, but after some time, they'll be tired of the beaches. But they will come for the history, for those historical sites that you have, that are so many. The ones that you prioritized, that tell your story. I think they're important. They are very important. So your question to me about being important for tourism, I think first and foremost, this is what you have that is so special, that makes you different from the others.
You noted that we have so many sites because we have a lot littered around the island. So how now would you say, should we preserve every single one?
No. You see, I said also earlier that we are also making history. I'm never against even building, okay? But we have spaces where we can create new places, and will have contributed to the development of a culture, development of a heritage. Those houses that we build today probably are going to be heritage tomorrow. These ones that were built in the past are today heritage, okay? But you don't have to repeat in the same place. It is the accumulation of the historical layers that creates a place, okay? Now, in terms of preserving everything, you can't preserve everything. You can't conserve everything. you have to choose. Conservation is also about loss, it's about choice, it's about deciding what is important. And that's why you need to develop management plans, management systems that will identify the values that you have in the site. What are the values that you have that you cherish, like your history? What are the attributes that are there that express those values? The attributes are these buildings, these stones. Now, if you destroy the attributes, there are no more values, okay? So try to protect as much and as many as possible, but you also have to balance development because human needs should be catered for. And conservation and development is not necessarily in conflict, right. But there must be consultation so that people know what they want to protect and what represents the collection of your history. That must be a must protected. Things that you really have to say, this must be protected. And others where you can say, well, because we don't have any other alternative, maybe we'll have to create another layer of history on top of this.
Okay. So are we then looking for probably one-of-a-kind pieces or structures that you wouldn't, even though we have so many, there are some that you only have one of?
The one that you have one of, you have to protect. Those ones you must protect. But also in a place like this, okay? This is a collection of fantastic historical buildings that you cannot do away with. It is their totality that makes the statement.
Correct.
So if you destroy one, you are destroying, it's like cutting pages of a book or removing papers from the archive that tells a story. You won't have a complete story. Already I can see that some of these places have already been eaten. So you're already eating into the story of the place, into the heritage of the place. So whatever you have that has got this solid accumulated history represented in attributes that are physically present, protect those ones and give them space to breathe. Protecting doesn't mean that you just put a fence around the structures. You also need to have a buffer zone that protects them. Buffer zone may not be part of the property, but it offers protection so that there is no encroachment. Right. That is the reason for buffer zone. When you hear people say buffer zone, it's supposed to support the site so that there is no encroachment. That is the boundary. So don't bring any other things in. People cannot come inside and start doing other things.
And do you believe there's like a set formula for the management of these types of sites?
I think that you need to develop. Every site has got its own stories, its own needs, its own values, but there are sites which are connected. For example, if you call these ones plantation farms, you can develop site management that looks at your plantation farms, okay? This is a big one. This one actually can even have its own management plan because you have so many buildings and this building needs its own kinds of things, how to do, what you need to do and all that within the next 5 years. The grounds need to do that. There are others which are small, which can be put together and be developed together. Then you have, churches. You can have development plans, management plans that address those ones. How you go about that, because their attributes are more or less the same. The values are also more or less the same. So the estates, these ones, the traditional houses, I see so many of them collapsing in the island, and this is a heritage that I think is a fantastic heritage. I mean, it's people don't realize that, but just imagine that these little houses built of wooden were able to sustain themselves with the people during hurricanes.
Yes.
Huh? Mm. So the technology involved, the ideas involved is so great, and it just goes because everybody now wants to build the same thing and forget about those ones. So I think that you also need to think about those ones, because when they go with the knowledge, the knowledge of the elders, those who made them.
Correct.
So if you have a few of those, people will still have a bit of that interest. And I think that those ones also need to have their own kind of a management plan. So you can group them, because there are so many, you can group them. So the idea is that you balance development with preservation, but you also understand that out of what you've chosen, you can grade them. So you can have grade 1, grade 2, grade 3. in priority, I would grade this site as grade 1, okay? Which basically I must protect, okay? Then you can go into others which have already been encroached and interfered with so much that you only have little things probably, and then that could even be grade 3. Then you can have grade 2 that could move to grade 1 at some stage once a lot of conservation work has been done into them. So you need to be able to have those particular types of grading, and that also shows you, or will help you in prioritizing and seeing how urgent particular sites need attention and what kind of attention they require.
Would grade 1 then be?
Grade 1 would be sort of the super.
Those would be easier to become
sort of World Heritage also.
World.
Yeah. Those ones I think would definitely. So I would call Bathhouse would be a grade 1 for me. I think it's the only site which is listed here.
Yes.
I would see this as a grade 1. You are telling me about Fort George.
Yeah.
I've not seen it. I would
Yes.
love to see that.
Okay.
Maybe that would be grade 1, another grade 1. Different kinds.
Yes.
And then you have grade 2 and grade 3. So sometimes grade 3 you may have to sacrifice when there is conflicts with development. Yeah.
And I know you mentioned you were going through the different types, churches, slave sites. So in terms of churches, they might have priests managing them versus this might have a governmental organization managing it.
Yes.
Do you think either one is better or worse in terms of getting listed as a World Heritage Site or being more valued or less valued?
That's an interesting question. Management is management. If goats and sheep could manage sites, there are so many goats and sheep in this island, then you could probably be very lucky to do that. But let me tell you, as long as you have systems in place, ECOMOS do insist that they need to be recorded down. So you have a management system or a management plan that is documented, okay? But I am telling you, many World Heritage Sites are managed by communities. Even this community living here can manage this site.
Correct.
It doesn't have to be government. It doesn't have to be an institution. As long as there is a system in place that will be able to manage that. I've mentioned in a place like in Kenya, the kayas, which are sacred forests, are managed by elders. They have always been managed by elders because they understand the intricate issues about them. Wow. They are the ones who have protected them. And they are not part of government. The National Museums comes in to help with the legal structure, legal framework of heritage in general. But they are day-to-day managed and it is accepted. And they are the only sites that are listed under 2 UNESCO conventions. I think only 6 of them in the world. The Kayas are one of them. And there are 10 serial nominations, 10 sites, all managed by community. You can Google that, you will find it. They are called the Mijikenda Kayas. You will find it. If you go to Sri Lanka, those temples, those wonderful temples, you go to a place like the capital of Sri Lanka, there is the Temple of the Tooth, which is the most sacred temple in Sri Lanka. It's managed by the priests. So you just need to put your systems properly and reinforce, if the systems are there, reinforce those so that they can work better. Okay? And where the government is managing, let the government also manage. They can manage, like the Ministry of Tourism, you're managing these sites. You have a system. Put that system in place, document it, manage the sites. You don't have to bluff around. If you're already managing, you manage. It's not a big deal. What UNESCO are the state parties. What they want is that the site's integrity, authenticity, and management systems is in place and not compromised. That is their interest. It's not the physical number of bodies that are managing or, whatever. It is what is there. The most important thing is that the site has got a management system and there is a system that is managing it. Finished.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you once again, Dr. Abungu, for coming around with us. And
you're welcome. But I've really enjoyed this. As an archaeologist, I have my criticism of some things, as I told you.
Yes.
But it's part of it. It's part of our life. We learn. But the most important, the initiative to do to act and to protect and to preserve, for me, that really has really impressed me. That there is that initiative, that drive, that commitment to make sure that, you know, you can come and sit here and see a clean site, manage it properly, involving the community and working together. For me, that is more important, rather than when I first came and it was in the bush and it was complete chaos. You didn't know what was, you know, where and you know. So I'm very impressed. I'm really impressed. Yeah, it's World Heritage is not a divine thing. It's not about going to heaven. World Heritage is on earth. It's us. It's us what we do here. People make it look as if it's completely out of this world. It's supposed to make you to recognize places with outstanding universal value that can bring you together to share in this history that you have created differently, in the diversity of humanity. So you have this that other people don't have. So in that we share. That is what is outstanding. Otherwise, if it is stone walls are everywhere in the world. But your story that you are telling that is embedded here is only in Eden.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
Excellent.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
On behalf of the Ministry of Tourism, thank you.
And the NH, yes.
Yes.
Then the city will call Queen City. I said, there's no place I'd rather